Afternoon, Philip. How are you?
Hey Ben, how are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks. And yourself?
Yeah.
I noticed you got some comments from people on section 7.5 again, and Kat's given comments throughout, I think, as well, which is helpful.
Yes. Yeah. What I've done, for the 7.5, I mean, that section is now in the archive, but I've got people to make some comments on it, and eventually they will be integrated and uploaded onto the combined document.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. I think there's still comments coming in.
Yeah, I think, this week was probably a bit adventurous to try and get a draft done. So I noticed there's been quite a few updates for the other sections this afternoon, which I haven't had a chance to look over yet, but
yeah,
it's definitely going in the right direction anyway.
Well, I've been reliant on the various experts who haven't been part of this direct discussion, but then I wanted feedback from them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've just put up something new.
Yeah, I just saw that came up. Thank you.
This morning, and I've added a little bit this afternoon. So.
Brilliant. Thanks, Peter.
That's the 1657, I assume. So how many of these do we actually need? It's just that one and the 2021-03-18, presumably, version.
There's two from the 21st. One that I edited last and one that Lorenzo edited last.
From the 21st?
Yeah.
Sorry.
One's got a load of initials after it and one of them hasn't, just got the date.
Oh, and they're both okay, and they haven't been combined in any way?
Not yet, no.
Yeah, okay, that's
I've
fine.
only just noticed that.
Yeah, all right. So we need both of those.
Yeah.
Okie dokie.
I know we've had quite a few apologies from people tonight, so it might just be a case of a quick update and then postpone until next week. But I assume Lorenzo is planning to join. Do you know, Chris? Okay, maybe give it a few more minutes. Just
he should be, but he's often running late.
Yeah.
But I noticed that he's viewing the same file as I am, so he's around.
Okay, well, he's obviously around somewhere. I suppose while we're waiting, Peter, do you want to update us on what the edits to 7.2 are?
So Ian had a really good go at it this morning and has edited it, and we've put a series of challenges in, so there now are explicit challenges. We've put them at the end of the section rather than interspersing them, because we thought that made more sense, because we wanted to describe uncertainty quantification in an unbroken flow. So we could change it, but and I think I know how many challenges we've got.
7 by the look of it.
It's probably it then.
Well, if I'm looking at the right thing.
You probably are, almost certainly are.
It was
7 sounds right.
It's alphabetical, so I was trying to work out how many.
It was A to G. It's definitely A to G.
Yeah, 7. Thanks, Valerie, for your quick maths there.
Yeah,
brilliant. Thank you.
I did a new one, but that's fine.
Yeah. So, are you happy for me to copy that across to the main document?
Absolutely. I think we're happy. That's
brilliant. I'll take a look through, but
TJ hasn't had a look at it because he's teaching. But
yes. Yeah, I appreciate it.
You'll have a look at it in the next few.
Okay, I'll maybe update him on Slack after the meeting.
Yeah.
I guess the only obvious thing would read the structure would be that it would be nice if all the sections had the same sort of structure re-challenges. So I don't know if they can all be written. They probably can all be written in this style.
Yeah, I think
but
section 5 already is written in a similar style, so that's
Yeah.
would be fine. I'm sure we can try and update.
Yeah, it would be nice if it was fairly even over the
Absolutely,
over
yeah,
the paper, wouldn't it?
yeah, I agree.
With section 7.5, I put some headings in, and I think I moved some text around. But
Oh yes, sorry, you're looking at the archive version, aren't you?
But I don't think any other changes were made on the main document. As I said, I've been gathering changes to the archive document, and eventually they'll be somehow or other taken account of. Yeah, the various comments. The various comments are actually very ancient. They should perhaps be removed, but never mind.
Yeah, I'll perhaps copy that after today. I think Marissa's been making some comments recently, so I won't move it for now, but later this week I'll perhaps copy across to the main document, if that's all right, Philip. Or would you rather keep it separately?
I think the hold fire for a bit, please, Ben, because
okay.
I think, you know, I want to do a bit of rewriting.
Yeah, of course, that's fine.
And yeah, I mean, yeah, okay, we'll work it out.
Yeah, that's fine. So I guess that means that 7.1 and 7.2 and 3 need restructuring according to that alternative.
So for the alternative structure, were you thinking interspersed challenges or all at the end? Sorry,
no, so probably all at the end. I think that's where we're at with 7.
Well, I think we want to do the same all
we
the
want
way
to do
through.
something, yeah,
so
similar.
If there's a strong argument for the UQ having them at the end, then we see if that will work for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to have a think with data. I mean, at the moment it's structured as sort of, I mean, it's kind of like a bullet pointed list at the moment with short paragraphs, each sort of pertaining to a different data-based challenge. And so it would work better interspersed, but we could maybe then highlight them all again at the end if that were the structure that we wanted to go for overall. I don't know if that'd work.
Yeah, it might take some thinking about how to work that, but I mean, essentially your paragraphs are similar to what the other sections have got at the end already anyway. It might just be a case of extracting some of the more general texts and just trying to put that at the start, just to give a background to data. I mean, we have to be careful because with the data paper, we don't want to talk too generally about it because there'll just be a lot of crossover. But if there's sort of general themes that lead you to think about the challenges for the data, that would be useful, or some of your and Lorenzo's experiences of the current pandemic, I guess.
Yeah, we'll have to go through the whole section, I guess, and make sure that each data challenge is specifically related to either UQ or estimation. And that was another thing I noticed. I was just reading through the whole paper, and so there's a lot of focus on UQ. I noticed, which makes sense. But obviously, the title is Challenges of Estimation, or something along those lines. So I didn't know if either the title needed adjusting or we needed maybe another section just on some more general estimation challenges.
So 7.4 should be more general estimation challenges. I guess we're recognizing that even when you're estimating parameters, you're trying to account for the uncertainty in them, whereas the UQ section is more the formal uncertainty quantification paradigm, which is one of the methods you can use for quantifying uncertainty, and it's more to do with the model uncertainty. So that's a
model
structure
type one. And then was it worth adding another one in terms of just sort of parameter estimation? So like obviously your model fitting and forecasting is estimating, but you're usually going to have input parameters to your model that you've gathered either from literature searches, but then those literature searches will be based on maybe statistical parameter estimation methods. And obviously a lot of them are quite well understood, but there's still issues coming into the data and the right censoring during expanding epidemics and things like that. And it was something I was wondering, we've got a few ideas and we didn't know whether they'd work just as small paragraphs within the data section. It's kind of part of that data gathering exercise. You look at what data sources you get, you see what parameters you can get some vague ideas on, and then you start plugging them into your models, or whether they're just being sort of a parameter estimation section.
So I think the intention was that 7.4 should have some of that in already. I think the more plugging parameter values from the literature comes more into the modeling paper, because it's less to do with estimation and more to do with fixing parameters, or at least we discuss a bit in there about trying to make them, ranges of parameters rather than fixed, because in that case you're not necessarily estimating them, you're more, they're either data that you've collected or, like you say, experimental results that you're using to feed into other models. But I guess there's a data aspect of that. If you're using those as kind of input data to your models for estimation purposes, then I think there is scope for a paragraph in the data section on that. I'm not sure if that was one of the headings that.
Yeah, I'll have a think. Between that section 7.4 and the data section, we can probably find somewhere to squeeze in the thoughts. Basically, so there's a little bit on right censoring at the moment.
Yeah.
But it's mostly focused in terms of just growing uncertainty as you hit the sort of censored period. But there's issues as well in just terms of getting your point estimates right, even if you're not looking at the uncertainty, which I think are important to cover. And then there's, Lorenzo and I have had many issues throughout this whole pandemic with RT estimations and growth rate estimations. And I guess that would that fit under 7.4, do you think? It's not quite modeling, but it's.
Yeah, that's obviously an important parameter that's often the principal thing that's used to conduct estimation on the state of the pandemic. I'm not sure if we've talked much about that.
Yeah, I've not seen anything in it so far. And it's one of those things, it's that you want to get a really good handle on it, but back in February and March, pretty much every R estimate was pretty poor, and it led to some bit questionable modeling results. And then I don't know. So Lorenzo and I would try to push that people should use growth rate instead, which is much easier to get a reliable handle on. And so that comes down to we need just better general models for estimating RT during the sort of patchy stage at the start of an epidemic. Lorenzo will definitely have more comments on that than I do. And then one thing we're noticing at the moment is with vaccination, it's becoming really hard to get RT estimates, because if, say, your model misspecifies the vaccine impact, you'll get very different R estimates. So say if you have a model that has no vaccination impact and you just fit it hospital data, you're going to get one R estimate, whereas if you're trying to account for the fact that some infections won't be leading to hospitalization and won't be leading to deaths, you're going to get very different shapes to your background epidemic curves. And this is something that people are thinking about, but I don't think it's fully understood. So it makes quite a nice challenge, I think.
Is that a challenge in terms of deciding what parameters you want to try and fix?
I think so, yeah. It's just that if you're wanting to estimate RT I don't know whether it would fit better here or in the interventions paper.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Interventions in play completely changed the way you're going to try and estimate RT. And so, if you think it would fit better in the interventions paper, there's
I think, we have written a section in the interventions on parameter estimation and challenges specifically related to interventions. So it might fit more naturally there, unless, Ian, you were going to say something. Sorry.
Well, no, it's a very interesting description of the problem. Obviously there's subtleties to do with the epidemiological modeling here, but there's a broad point of just exploring all feasible parameter choices here, right? So, a lot of the traps you mentioned there, Chris, come in if people are trying to estimate a particular value of the parameters. And essentially you're on a ridge in parameter space here, and you may be further along one end, and that may be true, and you may be okay with your predictions, or the truth may be a little bit further down here, and you can't tell the difference. So this comes into the full parameter exploration question. So it is maybe something we could mention here, because we talk about, a full exploration of parameter space, either via a frequentist method or a Bayesian method, but you really want to explore everywhere. And that guards against these sort of issues. Doesn't totally solve them, of course, because there's a modeling component there too.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And yeah, I mean, there's one of those things. Yeah, if you had a model, if you have loads of uncertainty about your vaccination impact, then you'll capture that with this nice wide parameter ridge, I guess. Where if you have a model that's completely misspecified, I mean, so one of the models that we've been using for the general RT estimates that we've been providing, we've not built vaccination into it, mostly because we've not had time. So Lorenzo's model still now has vaccination, but the model I was using doesn't. And so I've decided to stop submitting it now because we're getting to a point where just because it doesn't have vaccine, it'll give you an RT estimate that's really confident in, but it's starting to diverge from reality just because you're getting this separation between hospital admissions and the actual epidemic.
This is a very interesting point. Even a slightly incorrect model will still give you a very confident estimate of certain things. And yeah, this needs to be built into the inference program. No, it's very interesting stuff too. Well, perhaps we can just mention these issues because it's kind of relevant to our section, but perhaps we don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, always feel free to put it in there, and then even if we end up saying it's either cross-reference to another paper or copying cross chunks to a different paper if it's more relevant there, then as has been said before, it's better to have it somewhere than think it's in and just not put it down and it gets missed.
Yeah, but I think it is important, this point, that misspecified models, the more data you have, the more confident they become in the misspecification. And we should point that out to people, that just because the formal uncertainty is getting smaller and smaller doesn't mean your model's getting better and better.
In fact, you tend to get more spiked posteriors the worse specified your model is. In fact, so the further your model is away from the truth, the posterior just congregates around the closest points to the fit. So you get very tight posterior. So if you just look at your posteriors, say of your input parameter space, for example, they look really nice, but that's because your model's rubbish. And it's like, oh, right. But it's hard because when the models are expensive or slow, it's not trivial to just check that fitting criteria, you know. They can look like they're fitting okay, like univariately as well, like individually they can look all right, but only when you look at multivariate attributes you realize actually there's a problem. So there's a subtle game to be played here, I think. So Peter, I think you already put in a sentence relating to this, didn't you? But we can maybe sort of
there's something on discrepancy, and there is some mention there, but maybe we should pull it out as a challenge.
Could do, yeah.
Well, interpreting uncertainty in the correct way, that one can be misled if you just look at uncertainty and don't think about things like model discrepancy.
It's true. Well, the full parameter search issue is a big one, which is a nice intuitive one, but you're absolutely right. The sort of misspecified model game is a much more subtle trap that people fall into. So yes, maybe that's a one for to go down.
Yeah. And thanks for your comments as well, Ian. Peter briefly talked through what your updates before you arrived, but we'll transfer that across to the main document now, as long as
no problem. Cool.
You're happy with that? Yeah, that's great. Lorenzo, I noticed, has just joined. Thank you. We've been talking so far about possibly trying to restructure each of the sections slightly so that I think for UQ and 7.5, the expert elicitation, it's more natural to have the challenges at the end after a brief description of the approaches. So we're going to try and make it consistent across the sections by doing that for the other sections as well, which I guess is going to be down to those involved in each of the sections. So
great. So yeah, because I had a quick chat with Chris before this morning.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you've already kind of discussed.
Yeah, and hopefully, I mean, your stuff looks good, but it still needed restructuring anyway. So hopefully it's not going to make your job any more work by just giving you a more formal structure of what we want it to end up look like.
No, actually, any kind of guidelines in terms of structure are extremely welcome.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, our cross input 7.2 and 7.5 is already in that format. So if you have a look at those sections, and that'll give you an idea of the sort of structure. But we're sort of aiming for more descriptive maybe what the current position is, or anything that you think is related to data in the pandemics that you think is worthwhile, and then having a list of the challenges at the end of the section.
Thank you.
And yeah, so in 7.1 is introduction, so that's fine as it is. 7.2 will already be there. And I can speak to Glenn afterwards as well and check that we can put this as 7.4. Hi, Jasmina.
Hi. Hi, sorry, I'm a bit late and I'm switching my video off and I'm listening. So what did you say, what to look at? Sorry, Ben?
So we're looking at the main document, and also Peter and Ian have been working on a separate version of UQ 7.2, which is in a separate document in the doc box. And I think for a couple of the sessions, it makes more sense to have a more descriptive discussion initially, and then a list of challenges at the end of the section.
The one that says combined.
So the one that says combined with various initials at the end, I think, is the latest version of the main document.
Okay.
And then there's a 7.2.
There is one that isn't with initials, and it's 18th, and it's said later, not that one.
Okay, is that? I think
it's with today's date, but without.
Lorenzo, did you make some? I'm not. I mean, I've lost track. There seems to be a couple of versions, so I'll have to go back and check.
Sorry, repeat again the question.
So there's two. There seems to be now 3 versions of the combined document in. Oh no, sorry, that's the archive.
I created one with the date of today.
Yeah, so that's got updates in compared to the other one.
I added some, you know, what in a section where I suggested a structure and you moved around the small paragraph. Yeah. Okay. You left points 2, 3, and 4 to add. So I just decided to kind of join them and do a bullet point list of what I would have said for those, because someone write them. But I haven't changed anything else. That's fine. No, I'll use that one as the latest version, then, and we can put the other one into the archive after the meeting.
So can I just check that you edited the document that was there earlier?
I picked the latest timestamp, which is the one that finished with VI.
LP, the ending of VI, yes, okay. So that can be deleted.
That can be moved.
Because that's already incorporated in your 2021-03-18.
That is correct. If nothing else changed in the past half an hour.
Nobody else seems to have been editing the other one since then, so that looks all right.
All right, I'll move that to the archive now to avoid confusion.
Because other people are going to be editing. We should all be editing the same document, really.
Yeah,
I completely agree.
But can I also add a suggestion? When we do any edits, we make sure that the under review, the track changes is on. So we know.
Yeah, I left it on in this case, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that's been moved to the archive now. So there's only one version of the combined document. And there's also been, Philip has sent 7.5 out to the expert elicitation collaborators as well. And it looks like some of those have also made comments on the main document, which is helpful.
Yeah, I think so.
Kat Shea certainly has. So I'll go through and make any changes based on that. I think she's put quite a few references, which is really helpful. So I don't know if there's much else to discuss this week, if anyone else wants to.
One point we discussed earlier, but I don't know if we'd resolved, which is authorship. I mean, so for example, a number of my external experts have been making helpful comments.
Yeah.
And I've got a list, actually, the list isn't quite complete in the document, but you know, what do we do about who are going to be authors, and how are we going to otherwise acknowledge input?
I'll hand that over to perhaps Dennis and Valerie.
I had a
Maybe
feeling
I don't know if you've thought about this, but where there's the kind of common
I mean,
approach across papers.
some of the authors, well, I was hoping with most papers it would be fairly clear who the authors were in terms of people who've been doing most of the writing. And then there's a sort of a second tier of people who've commented, but not really been writing the paper. And I would have thought that those would be acknowledged. I mean, we don't, in most of these papers at the moment, we don't have an acknowledgement section, and we probably need to have one. And to acknowledge, at the very least, the Newton, any grant funders that people need to acknowledge, and then people that have helped with comments but wouldn't really be thought of as authors. I don't know whether it'll be easy to divide everybody into those camps, and maybe one or two we'll have to sort of think about, but I was hoping that the authors in general would be people who've turned up and been working on these papers, you know, for the last few months, basically. We need a lead author for each paper, and I'd rather assume that probably the default position would be that the lead author would be the person who's been acting as coordinator and doing a lot of the, well, both the writing and the dragooning into shape. But again, maybe each paper will have to think on its merits a bit. Dennis, anything to add there?
No, I mean, I think it's the, mathematical tradition of authorship rather than, let's say, the medical one.
Yeah.
I mean, my little bit of involvement in the medical world is I seem to have surprisingly ended up with my name on several papers I didn't really know that I had anything to do with. And of course, part of the point of these things has been to try and to hope that they develop best through an interactive process in which authors talk quite a lot to each other and discuss with each other how to improve the thing. So on the whole, I think, I'm sure there are going to be difficult cases, but in most cases, we have somewhere between, 5 and 10 authors on one of these papers who are people who've done a mixture of contributing substantial amounts. I mean, let's say typically a section or much of a section, and also have been involved in the discussion of how that fits into the paper. And of course, some people have been, involved in all or most of the sections in their paper, but the people who've been substantially involved like that, and then absolutely there will be quite a lot of other people who've been very helpful, maybe either turned up for one session or contributed some small amount at one stage and popped in and out. And I think, so I would think it's entirely appropriate that I think probably the right place it is as the last sentence of the paper, before you get to references, it should have acknowledgements and say and just have a paragraph just saying we thank for their help X, Y, and Z for their helpful input. And if there were difficult cases, obviously you could make sure that the acknowledgements were particularly fulsome. You could essentially say what the help consisted of. Someone for reviewing the whole paper and making very helpful comments on or something. I mean, you could, if that seems appropriate. But I think.
Does that sound acceptable, Phil? Since you're the person that raised it.
I think so. I mean, I don't know if. So I suppose Luke and I have been responsible for our section, but we've had some very helpful and non-trivial input from other people.
Yes, and I would think that as Dennis says, one would, in the acknowledgements, one would acknowledge explicitly rather than just one of these catch-all. Thank all those who have commented on the paper. I mean, obviously
they must be named. They must
it would be named and potentially specific help with particular sections or whatever.
Yeah.
As appropriate, really.
Sure.
The other thing we'll need to think about is who we would like, you would like, whatever, this draft to go to. I mean, Phil's already been doing it with section 5. Hans will look at the whole paper as a sort of internal reviewer. But are there other people that we would like to provide comments? And if so, whom and when? And then when it gets to submitting it, we will have the opportunity to submit. I mean, authors will be asked to suggest referees. So one might also think about people to put there, and maybe even to save the odd name for later use.
Presumably they can't be the same people that do the internal review, really, and then
I think it would be a bit odd too.
yeah. Does anyone have any? Obviously, Hans has been mentioned. Any other? I think Graham Medley was suggested last time as an obvious choice.
You're going to struggle a little bit, Graham, I suspect.
Well, Graham offered in discussions quite a long time ago to be involved at that level, since he couldn't be, the time was just completely impossible to be involved with actually writing and things. Mm-hmm. But he did say that he would look at things, and he has looked at the policy paper, which was the first one out, and made very useful comments on that. So, I think he will if he can, and it's worth asking.
Yep, I agree. You'd be surprised what he's capable of.
Well, it might come as light relief, mightn't it? And all the other things.
Yeah, that tells you something about what's going on when he's not reading a paper.
Kat Shea would be an obvious choice, but she's already taken a reasonable perusal through it, I think.
Has she looked at the whole thing or only through?
She's made comments throughout on all of the sections, so it seems that she has, whether or not it's in depth or just skim reading, but it seems to be she has. I don't know if you have any idea, Philip. She hasn't been in touch.
Who, sorry?
Kat
Shea.
I mean, she made some comments both on my bit and I haven't actually checked what she's commented on the main document, but she told me she had.
Yeah, she's added quite a few references and a few points, sort of, just suggesting possible extensions or clarifications, but
yeah,
that's useful. Gareth Roberts possibly might be an option.
Yeah. Or Phil O'Neill.
Phil O'Neill, yeah.
Well, I mean, we don't need to talk about it now. I was just sort of, I just wanted to drop it in to people to think about.
Yeah. So I'd suggest, well, my intention is to sort of combine 7.2 and then try and make the structural edits necessary for the other sections. And then once we've got that done, Philip, you said you want to make some additional changes to 7.5.
Yes.
So I'll hold off on that until, but maybe beginning, it was sort of Tuesday next week, realistic to get those done. And then it gives us a few days before the next meeting to maybe do another read through internally. and any suggestions that we want to make before sending it out. At least to internal, well, at least to close review by the end of the month, hopefully, even if we're not quite ready to submit by then.
Cool.
Does that seem reasonable?
Maybe with this one that because people are looking at you know, I mean, there are the three areas with the UQ and the elicitation and the more sort of traditional area in the middle. It may be that each of those is being looked at quite a bit separately anyway.
Yeah.
But it would be good to have the odd person who looks through the whole thing and
yeah, I agree.
make sure it makes sense.
Has the UQ, as it has been sent to Michael? I mean, he would be another good person to get a look over as well.
I think Michael saw an early draft of it. Your first draft, Peter, went to Michael, so it might be time, or maybe very soon, maybe after one more week, 2 more days of just smoothing it out. Then we could send it to him again. No, he'd be my natural suggestion, but as I work with him, I didn't say his name because
no, of course, yeah. I mean, he would his choice, and obviously his expertise would extend to the other sections as well, not just the UQ one. But
Danny's another one we could send. Section 2.
Definitely, yeah, that would be good.
Yeah,
those two give us a good view.
Yeah.
Michael will just say more UQ though, so you should be. You know, he's like
I was anticipating that.
So it's just even more UQ. If it doesn't have UQ in every sentence, it's not enough, is what he'll say. So there you go.
Only 8 challenges. That's not enough.
Oh, he's welcome to add any more if he's got suggestions, but yeah, I'll keep it as it is for now. Okay. Anything else anyone wants to add? Okay, so if we aim for Tuesday, I'll send a message on the Slack channel for those who aren't here. But if we aim for Tuesday, and I'll then use Tuesday and Wednesday to do another fine edit of it, and hopefully getting a bit closer to being ready.
Sounds good.
Great.
Okay, thanks everyone. Have a good weekend.
Okay.
See you next week.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.